AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Joanne Chen. Joanne is the VP of Data at 30 Madison. Joanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. So, Joanne, let's start with yourself. Can you give a brief overview of your background in tech, where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and take us up to just before you joined 30 Madison?
So I started out as a neuroscience, as a scholar. I was very much a day-to-day into both the experimentation as well as the data analysis, trying to figure out some very hard to answer questions in neuroscience in terms of like behavioral, plasticity. Not trying to, bore you with all the details, but one epiphany that I really had in those experiences was like, I realized that the statistics and the really better technology in addressing the kind of data need and how we can leverage data to be more efficient and effective in advancing our understandings, both on the science and the technology front, is incredibly important. So that is what got me really, really interested in the data. I started out as a data scientist in the pharmacy supply chain, working at Joannes, joined the startup when it was only about 20 folks, so looking to understand how we can leverage this humongous amount of pharmacy transactional data to help the payers and the pharmaceutical players in the pharmacy supply chain to better understand their target audience. So that is also the time that I realized data not only can be super effective in driving the efficiency in our understanding a collective applications of these technologies and the data points in the business operation, but also is incredibly powerful as a solution to some of the problems that we see in the industry. For example, back in the days when manufacturers have the brand like competing or have a brand that is facing the generic competition, it's really hard to understand like what would be the sweet spot for them to roll out this co-pay assistance program so that the patients afford the medication that they need. So this is where we came into play. We developed out this product solution utilizing this humongous amount of data to really help drive some quantitative intelligence and the modeling to help answer that question. So that's incredibly interesting, and that got me, I would say, like firmer in pursuing a path in this data, leadership and the data product, this kind of career areas. And then I took, I wouldn't say detour, but I kind of go to the other side of the same table. I joined a hedge fund to really focus on the trade around the revenue cycle management of health plans. And I would say that was an incredibly fulfilling experience as well. It really helped me seeing a lot of those gaps in the operational problems or challenges that we're facing today in this healthcare system. And then I think that the enterprise intelligence platform, just thinking of that as a like data muscle of an organization, is incredibly powerful to help any organization to be smarter and more effective in driving their like a roadmap and to go to where they want to be. So that really got me even more excited about a future, I would say, a further advancement on this, data career, really trying to not only, provide a kind of a very pointed, purpose-built kind of a solution to solve a certain industry problems, but also at the same time building this foundational enterprise intelligence muscle for any organization and for them to be like smarter, better, more effective.
Yeah, well, it's a great segue into part of your motivations why you're now at 30 Madison. Obviously, you've held several leadership positions, but you're now the VP of Data at 30 Madison. So can you give an overview for people listening who are not familiar with 30 Madison, what the company does, the various areas within healthcare that you work in, and then talk to us about your role as the head of all things data?
So 30 Madison is really a D2C healthcare company in the chronic condition management. What we are intending and we have been building is really this patient-centric integrated care experience that is specifically around a certain chronic conditions, right? Like we have a Keeps, which is a brand around the hair loss. We have a Cove, which is a migraine treatment. We have Evans, which is entirely about acid reflux and all the broader therapeutic conditions. I would say that what we are special and unique in the business model is that we not only are providing this seamless, delightful, customer-centric integrated care experience from the point that they started onto our brand and the product they're really experiencing this telemedicine capability, getting easy access to the specialists that would otherwise very hard to access. But at the same time, we provide that longitudinal, ongoing chronic condition management, ensuring that our patients would be cultivating a relationship with our consistent care team that take care of them, track progress, refine treatment, and making sure that we're really collectively aiming towards the outcome for every single patient that utilizes our services, rather than a very kind of transactional, mechanical kind of model that we have seen very typical in the healthcare.
Thank you for that, Joanne. So then focusing on your role specifically, what are the main marquee things that you and your team are working on in the near term? What are some of the challenges that you face that's unique to B2C within healthcare? Because we speak to a lot of people who are working on drug discovery or hospital care, but it'd be good to get the perspective on B2C healthcare and some of the stuff you're working on there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So I think most of the players in the healthcare market, especially on the operations side or provision side of the healthcare, I think they are trying to develop out this muscle to be able to really acquire, own this patient relationship, acquire patients, maintain the great dynamics between the patients and the care team, as well as retaining the patient. So I think this is something that most of the payers or players in this market is trying to develop out as the muscle that most of the established traditional ones are looking to build. I think 30 Madison is relatively, I would say, unique in the sense that it has a really good muscle on that, starting out more as I would say e-commerce, D2C, I would say like very customer-driven business model. It actually has a pretty good data capabilities and being very smart about acquiring the right customer or acquiring the customers, delivering the right brand experience, and engaging the customers throughout the journey, and then capturing everybody's experience in the personalized and the delightful fashion, and proactively manage the experience from there. So I would say that that's a very strong muscle that 30 Madison already has. Now, however, what we are looking to really build out and scale is this operational analytics. What I think as a company that is looking to become more and more efficient and effective in the operation side of things, the data is incredibly important. And therefore, we would like to really beef up our artificial intelligence capability and decision support for physicians. For example, we are looking to build out the prioritization queues based upon the NLP technology and those inbound tickets and the communication that we have received the patients. We're really looking to beef up the operational side of the house with the predictive analytics and very sophisticated AI technologies for us to be ahead of the curve in achieving that accessible and affordable care for our patients. And I would say that the third category is relatively a little bit longer term. But if you think about 30 Madison as a healthcare company that uniquely sits between healthcare providers as well as the patients, it really is this a hub as a service that can see all the data, both from a clinical side of things as well as from the patient demographics and the behavior wise. So we are in this unique spot where we are aligned from a mission standpoint to leverage this information to provide a better quality care and refine, adjust this longitudinal ongoing chronic condition management strategy for each one of our patients. So this is not the kind of a generic sort of a transactional care model or experience that you would receive by seeing your specialist once or twice over the course of a year. This is a ongoing relationship driven, outcome driven kind of a care experience that really makes sure that we have every piece of this journey figured out and stitch it together to give you that seamless, delightful experience and outcome.
So Joanne, part of your role as the VP is to build out the data function. And you and I have spoken previously, and there's already exciting growth. So can you help us understand the journey, what it's going to take, what the end goal is in terms of your data team and the growth that's expected over the next 12 to 18 months?
I think the data team currently at 30 Madison is at a extremely exciting spot. Like we're seeing a lot of greenfield opportunities for data to really drive the impact. Not only on the e-commerce, this B2C aspect, that's something that we are already fairly sophisticated and advanced, but there's still like things that we can drive. Like for example, the retention piece of the patient journey. How do we better understand our patient experience throughout the journey and use that insights or recommendations to deliver even better crafted product experience for our patient that aims towards a better clinical outcome. I'm seeing that is a very exciting area for the data team to really focus at. And separately, we have this operational analytics and this clinical analytics. These are two areas that we are seeing a lot of greenfield opportunity, a lot of potential. Right now, we are I would say, in the very early stage of building this out, and the sky really is a limit in terms of the impact that we can drive. So I would say that across the board, there is a lot of potential, a lot of opportunities for us to tackle. Definitely a lot of exciting work ahead of us. We are just at that early stage building this out, already seeing a lot of impactful use cases and the tangible value we bring to the table. And it's just a matter of keep focusing on what is important and being very ruthless in the prioritization and make sure that bring the quality talent to the team and they really execute and drive it to the next level where it should be.
Excellent. Joanne, I want to now get your take on some advice you can possibly offer to future candidates who are interested in making the transition into healthcare and health tech. You've obviously been on both sides. You've worked in other industries. Can you help offer some guidance and advice on what candidates can do to upskill themselves personally prior to making the switch, or what's important for them to know when moving from other industries into healthcare?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Throughout my career, I've seen a lot of really, really talented folks, and my advice for them when they want to either switch into data science or switch into more specifically healthcare data roles, my advice is always that any technology that you are interested at, this is something that you have that expertise, and even if you don't, this is something that you can pick up very, very quickly. If you're interested and very passionate and smart, I'm sure that you can learn anything very quickly. I think one thing that I would suggest everyone to place a heavier focus on is really about the so what question, right? Like not only you want to learn about all those like reinforcement learning, for example, like classification, all those like deep learning neural network, this is all great, but I think there is also a very strong importance in translating that to the impact, the so what question of these technologies, of these use cases, really kind of breaking it down into the tangible value add that from a commercial standpoint, someone could easily understand and digest. And ultimately, I think let's not start with the technology and try to figure out what problems that I can solve, but more like, taking the other approach of thinking about if I have a problem, like how would I go about solving it? What is the right technology that I should use to solve it? So that would be my 2 cents on folks who are looking to transition into this field. And specifically, I think that really is going to resonate very, very well with probably other industries as well. Ultimately, what we really care about is, hey, what that means to the business, what that means to the industry, how that helps us to be better at what we do, rather than, hey, do we utilize a very specific kind of a technology, or can we say that we use a certain like a buzzword type of technology? So that would be just my 2 cents about this.
Incredibly helpful. Well, Joanne, we really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. Amazing things happening at 30 Madison and exciting growth to come. So thank you for sharing about the business, about your background, and what's in store. We wish you guys all the best.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here. I really had a very enjoyable conversation with you. Thank you, JP.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.